What is this?
Already.
Time Warp started. It told me Time Warp started a live video. Hello, everybody. As you see, we're standing outside. Look at
beautiful,
this. It's
finally.
beautiful. Look at the cloud right above it. Anyways, and it's interesting. Look what's behind me. It's the bubble gunner.
Yeah, so just
Can
take
you
a
believe
step
it?
back so they can take a
Just so you can get a
beautiful
whole
look.
gander of it. And we're going to give it a few seconds for people to start jumping on because I did start a minute early. And this is insane.
I never get the chance to fully
crazy,
look at it,
isn't it?
so I'm
It's
excited.
so cool. So we have people starting to jump on, which is pretty cool. We got a couple on Instagram. We got a few on Facebook. Let's give it another minute real quick. Because we're still
Was
at
it hard to put the
6:29.
carpet up there? Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Up top. Did you see the thing up top?
I did. It's weird.
Isn't that cool? All right, we're starting to grow. So, welcome. This is a fun 70s show,
I'm
right?
really excited.
It is fun. So, we've been doing decades, and we did the 50s and the 60s, and then we took a little break because we were doing the LGBT for the month, and then, of course, 4th of July.
And now we're with the Rolling 70s right now.
Now we're with the Rolling 70s. My favorite decade, I gotta tell you. The 70s is my favorite decade, and I'll tell you all about it in a minute. But we're standing in front of the bubble gunner.
And it's beautiful. Again, I'll take one step
Yeah,
back so you guys
look at
can
this.
really look at it.
So we also are fortunate enough to have the creator of this van here. And his name is Dave Marconi. Come on over, Dave.
Hello.
So
Perfect
say hi to
timing.
everybody.
Perfect.
So this is Dave Marconi, and he is a friend of ours as well as a customer.
I am.
And he is responsible for this.
This is a beautiful, bad ass van. I'm sorry.
Oh, it is. It's totally a shagadelic van.
It's amazing.
It was a really fun build. We had a really good time doing it.
So one of the cool things is this was at the Autorama this year, the Detroit Autorama, 2023 Autorama.
Correct.
Dave makes something for the Autorama, makes something, redoes something.
Dude,
What would
this
you call
is
it?
the 13th year that I've had a new car in the basement at Autorama. So for
That's
the
awesome.
last 13
13
years,
years.
we've done a new car. The group that I run with, we've done a new one for every year.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
And you may have seen, and if you haven't seen, go back and look because it's on our YouTube as well as on here. We did an interview with Dave at
did.
the Autorama, and he explained it all. But it isn't just the Autorama that this van has been seen at. It was the
People-
Motor Muster.
It was at the Motor Muster Greenfield Village. And if you live on the east side, chances are you've seen it out and about.
Yes.
The goal is to drive it.
And it's also parked outside of our store from time to time as well. And we literally have people peel over just to come and take a look at the van. And I love it.
So we had it sitting out here a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, or
Yeah.
a week ago.
20 minutes ago, I know that they pulled up because of the van.
Oh, they
thought
did,
we were
yeah.
open for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So we had somebody say that they seen it driving around. They seen it in the Memorial Day parade,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
St.
stuff
Clair
like
Shores
that.
Memorial Day Parade.
Yep, and they always talked about it and said, "Oh God, one day I want to see inside that van," and it was parked out here, and they got to, and they were all excited about it. So this is 1970s, and this is the 70s show. So a couple of things I wanted to ask Dave about was in the 70s, the fuel economy was the bad thing. The miles per gallon was started by the EPA in 74, which brought a lot of smaller cars to focus because people were concerned about their miles per gallon.
Well, it was
Detroit made gas guzzlers.
It was the beginning of the gas crunch. So we had the OPEC embargo, and we had long lines for fuel. The average American car at that time got right between 10 and 13 miles per gallon.
Oh my goodness, 10 and 13 miles per gallon.
Yeah, so but it had been at a time prior to that when fuel was plentiful and cheap, so there really wasn't any consideration to making them economical.
Sure.
It was really more about making them fast and fun. And actually, right about that time was the end of the muscle car.
Okay.
72, you
Takes a
said?
lot of
Yeah,
time.
Something like
so
that.
72 was one of the last year for the higher compression, bigger cubic inch engines because the EPA started penalizing the car companies for the poor mileage.
Wow, nice.
So one of the things, growing up here for the first 10 years of my life and then knowing a lot about Michigan and the car companies, is a lot of the car companies wouldn't allow you to park on their lots if you drove a foreign car.
Well, especially here in Detroit, we're a union town.
Yeah.
We're American made. It's very centric, and then even to the point where in the construction, when they brought foreign construction equipment in the 80s, the UAW workers wouldn't run them.
Sure.
So the operating engineers wouldn't run non-American construction equipment.
Which, do you feel like at the time that was a major setback for us? Do you feel like we could have gotten a lot farther if people would just overlook that?
It's tough because when there's somebody from a foreign land that's gunning for your job, you have to understand the passion and the reality of what those guys were doing.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's a tough balancing act, and if you look
Sure.
at it historically, we're kind of still in the middle of it.
Sure.
And everything went to China, and now things are coming back from China, so it's all kind of cyclical, but
Kind of like a give and take for that.
it really is.
For sure.
So, those of you who are on, can you hear us okay? Because with the traffic coming, I want to make sure you can hear all of the questions okay, because we tend to pick up a little bit of
Honestly, I'm
white
just going
noise.
Little background
You
noise,
guys keep
little
talking. I'm going
background.
to check on Facebook.
So, what do you say to the fact that in history, like in history documents and stuff like that, they say that the 70s was when the Detroit auto, the gas guzzling muscle cars went out, but the explosion of the Japanese vehicle Toyota Honda happened due to compact size.
It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
So, if you think about the Toyota, the foreign cars of the 60s, they were unreliable, they
Right.
were poorly made, they were really not tremendous cars. And in the 70s, the Japanese auto manufacturing kind of came into their own. So they started building cars that were competitive, that were reliable. And on top of that, they were less expensive than some of the U.S. stuff,
Right.
and they got great mileage.
So
it was really kind of a perfect storm for the Japanese automakers.
And it was, and I know that some of my friends from here and stuff, where they have like the economy car, the Hyundai, the stuff like that. But then they also have their muscle car, because people bred and born in Detroit are muscle car. They're muscle car. They're the bigger 70s cars. What were you telling me about the 70s car being the bigger one? We still liked it.
Well, that era is called the Malaise era.
Malaise era.
So if you think of the cars of that era, they carry the styling trends of their times, which were, like the Harvest Gold, big overstuffed interiors, very
Right.
luxurious. And it's funny because in the car subculture, that was never really a desirable car.
Right.
But now that the next generation is starting to collect, those guys are into the 70s cars and the early 80s cars, and there's another whole subculture of collectibles
Right.
that are coming through with those cars. So it's kind of cool to see those cars,
It
which are
is kinda cool.
underappreciated in their day,
Right.
get their comeuppance now.
And we're running into that same situation now with the fuel economy back then with the MPGs as with electric vehicles today.
Yeah.
Because it's that transition that's going to be hard.
Well, and again, if you think about electrics in that era, the city car debuted in the 70s, which was
Yeah.
a little car, looked like a cheese wedge.
Yep.
Had, I want to say 110 miles
It was
battery
electric,
range.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it was all the old nickel batteries, like the same thing you'd have in your passenger car, but the whole floor would be in it. Now
that's-
the range of an average electric car is over 300 miles per
Right.
charge.
So we're getting better with the electric. That we are.
As technology comes to the forefront, the technology gets better.
Sure.
Think about where your cell phone was 10 years ago.
Right. It was
It's
this
the-
huge Nokia brick.
It's the same.
Tell me, Dave, what was this? Tell me what type of van this is, first of all.
It's a 77 Dodge Tradesman.
Dodge Tradesman.
Yep, built as a
77.
tribute to the Dodge Street Van package.
So, oh, really? So, and you tell me what you did to it.
Well, we started with a cargo van.
Mm-hmm.
So this was it was the Oklahoma Public Schools delivery van.
Oklahoma Public Schools delivery
So
van.
a gentleman bought it there and drove it up here because he didn't want to rent a U-Haul.
Right.
I went through a couple owners before me, and the previous owners have been accumulating all the vintage van parts. So it's got all the cliche van. It's got the flares and the visor, the mirror on the ceiling, the shag carpeting. It's got all of the
as you guys can see here.
cliche van items.
Yeah. I mean, even down to the mirrors, it's everything. So tell me, I know that you got a lot of the interiors from us,
Yep.
of course. The
Absolutely.
carpet.
The only thing that's new on the interior basically is the orange shag on the floor,
Correct.
which was a Home Depot piece. But everything on the door panels is vintage from Time Warp.
Yeah.
The end table is Time Warp.
Yeah.
The lion mural on the ceiling, which seems to really captivate people,
Yeah.
is also a Time Warp piece. It was brand new in the box when I got it from you guys. It had never been taken out.
These were started with us, but
Yes.
then you got them from the person that we sold them
I
to.
chased them,
Hilarious.
yes, because we needed Strohs for the
Sorry.
van.
So these were the material for the ice cream shop,
Gotcha.
the seats, and you just recently found a frame with the same material.
Yeah, I found it a
What
photo
is that
op.
over there?
That was another recent purchase from an estate sale. It's what we think is, and Steve and I are both
Yeah.
researching it. It's a dealer, like a dealer giveaway for the vendors. So it's actually a cooler. So it's a metal cask, a wooden cask with a steel insert in it, so that you can put ice in it and then take it out and dump it.
That's
So do you
sick.
think it was Stroh's to begin with?
It's definitely Stroh's because it's burned into the lid.
See, now that's awesome. Isn't that awesome?
That's beautiful.
He finds
It's
the
really
coolest
pretty.
things. Now, we've had a few customers about the street van sign or rug and stuff like that. So you got those made, and you got that brought in from. You just ordered that, right? The van.
The van on the wall is actually vintage, but I found it at the flea market. The carpet is from Aurora Acid Rugs out of California.
Or say it again.
Aurora Acid Rugs.
Aurora Acid Rugs. If you want a street van sign.
She does hand hook rug.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you have a logo, she could do the Time Warp logo.
That's awesome.
Super high quality artisan stuff.
looks really
I was
nice.
really stoked to get it. And using the van, it's worn well. It's not shedding every
Right.
minute.
And it looks like it's still legible and it looks clean.
She does
too.
beautiful.
And so I know you guys can't see it, but there is beading along the back doors, so it adds to it. So this is definitely your Kelso van, your Shagadelic van.
We
So
get the Kelso van a lot.
let's shut the doors and talk about the paint job
Okay.
for a second. Look at this paint job. Now, Dave did this paint job with a few friends, right?
Yep. So I did the paint from here down, which
All
is
the
all
geographic.
metal flake
Yeah.
and lace pattern and endless line, which was all very 70s.
And I hope you guys can see it, because here you've got skulls
Yeah.
within it.
That was
Now-
actually Joanne fabric, Halloween fabric that was on clearance when I bought the rest of the fabric.
I love that.
So I bought it on a whim, and it happened to transition well.
Yes, it
Yeah,
did.
it looks awesome.
It's, so the skulls are very cool. And, yeah, you can all see the bubbles back here. The bubbles are all done by who?
Those are all hand painted by Kyle from KS Designs.
That's right, Kyle from KS Designs.
Each one of those is a single hand stencil.
Wow.
Look at these. And when you walk past it, it is three-dimensional.
It is.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the white ones are done in pearl, so when you walk past them, the white ones will actually disappear as you walk past.
Yeah, that's super cute.
So now I know that the painting and the technology is something that you've done in your lifetime for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah. Now you're with the Detroit Historical Society.
I am the automotive and industrial curator for the Detroit Historical Society.
So we are honored to have somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. Isn't that awesome?
You're setting me up for failure.
No, because I mean you don't become the what is it?
I'm the automotive and industrial curator.
For the Detroit Historical Museum.
Yes.
So you don't become that person without knowing what you're talking about.
Well, I was very fortunate to be a long-term volunteer for them.
Yep.
And when the position became available, they approached me about it, and I couldn't be any happier with the way things have turned
I
out.
think it's fantastic.
It's amazing.
Get down to to the Detroit Historical Museum and take a look at some of the stuff there. But Dave, this is amazing.
Thanks. We're always
This
happy
is
to have it
amazing.
up. Like I said, we try and rotate it up once a month so that we can park it out in front of the store, so folks
Yes,
can come and check
absolutely.
it out.
So one of these days coming up soon, I will post when he's going to be here to have the van and we park it up by the street. And with the doors open, well, we don't leave the doors open. But
request.
we open it and show everybody so you can take pictures with it, do all sorts of stuff. So
Absolutely.
it's fun. Good times. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
I'm
Yes.
super excited.
Me too.
I do have a couple of questions
Yes,
for you before
please.
you
Go
leave.
Yes,
right
please.
ahead.
So did you ever wake up
closer
one
so they
day,
can see
did you
you.
think that this was going to be your project for the next couple of years?
I don't. Projects have a way of finding me.
Sure.
So when I grew up on the east side, there was a guy 2 doors away from me that had a custom van that was pretty similar to this in that era.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Heck yeah.
It had a big mural on the side of it and a mushroom window in the back.
Heck yeah.
And as a 10-year-old, I couldn't imagine anything that would be any cooler
Any
than
cooler,
that.
for sure.
So when this van came up, it was nice and clean, and it had some of the stuff with it. So I thought that this was the opportunity
You're
to
like,
make
hey,
that,
why not?
to revisit that van.
So, taking that into consideration, I am also curious about what was the easiest part of this van and what was the most difficult, frustrating thing to try to deal with the van.
It's tough. So basically, this was done by a group of 4 of us.
Okay.
My friend Brad did the mechanical, Kyle and Shem did the art on the roof and on the sides, and then my friend Greg did the carpentry.
Okay.
I can do the paint, I do the body work, I did carbon fiber for years,
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
but I can't cut a 2x4 straight to save my life.
For sure, fair enough.
So my favorite thing was when my friend Greg volunteered to come over and give me a hand with it because he's an amazing finished carpenter.
That's awesome. So he
So,
was the one that kind of got all the carpet checked
Of
together.
all the things that I was worried about getting it done, the carpentry was the single biggest thing I was worried about.
Okay,
because
for
it was
sure.
kind of out of my control.
So another off-the-wall question. How long did it take the paint to dry?
Well, we did it in stages.
Okay.
So from regular yellow cargo van to painted up to here took me about a week.
It's not too bad. Okay.
You know, I have a full-time job, so it's a 3-4
For sure, yeah,
hours
you gotta
after
take your
work
free
every
time,
night.
for sure.
And the painting of the metal flake takes a little bit of time because it's a many-step process.
Absolutely. And then my last question for you is, how many miles are on your van?
Actually, when I got it, it had just over 80,000 original miles on
Wow.
it. So it's actually pretty low mileage for what it is. And we've driven it probably in the last 3 or 4 weeks since the weather's gotten nice. I've probably put 300-400 miles on it.
Sure, not too bad, not too bad. So still under 100K?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
So,
Dave, you did a great job with this van,
thanks.
and I love
Isn't there
it.
a hidden feature on top?
Well, it's hidden, unfortunately, because it's tall. So we talked about KS Designs, Kyle and Shem. Shem called me. He actually lives in North Carolina, and he called me and said, man, I got to get some art on that van.
Right.
And by that point, we had already done all the way around it. I said, I'm a huge fan of his art. He's an amazing artist. He said, we don't have any room. So I'll put a Raffink on the roof. Well, that's great, but the van, I'm 6 foot tall, and the van is 6.5 feet tall. So if you can see it, and I usually try and show it with a mirror on the roof so you can see it. But there's a really cool Raffink, and he's got a bubble pipe in his hand, and he's blowing bubbles, and they trail down the side.
Oh, no
And it
way.
actually wraps the van. So
That's
if you
so
can
It is
see
cool.
it,
I have seen it up there.
It makes
If we had a
sense.
selfie stick, we could.
I know.
Well, and
right?
I watch. It's funny because when you show it, I tell people that, and you can see him standing in front of it with their phone, trying to get
Right.
a
Trying to
picture
get
of
it
it so they can
for
see
sure,
it.
for sure.
So, if you happen to be in a helicopter, or you happen to be in a 2-story
In a
building,
second
or
story.
Or
something,
if you're just
you can
ironically
see
over
it.
6.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Which, yes, is happening more.
If you're Manute Bowl, you'll absolutely be able to get a good shot.
right.
For
Absolutely.
sure.
So, what a great pleasure to have this here. And
It's-
even on when you park it up there, it's so exciting.
No, for sure.
It's fun to have out in public. People are drawn to it. Everybody has a van story, or their
Oh, they
parents,
do.
or how they
Do you get bored
traveled.
talking about it sometimes?
No. I
No?
mean, that's if you don't want to talk about it, then you can't take it anywhere.
For sure, for sure.
Because you have to stop and talk to people. It's part of it.
For
It's
sure.
part of it. It's like having a blue mohawk and somebody saying, "Why's your hair like that?" and you getting upset about it.
No, agreed, agreed.
You know what I mean?
Well, and those of us that have had mohawks remember
Right.
those days. So
Yep. So, but anyways, thank you so much for coming. and
absolutely.
showing it
Always
to
a
us.
pleasure.
And I'm so glad it didn't rain.
I know, the sun came out, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
blew right over.
Yes.
So, keep an eye out because I will post on social media when Dave is going to bring the van up. Sometimes I only know the day of,
Yeah,
which is
sometimes-
fine.
Sometimes
But
it's last minute.
That makes it cool.
check and see if it does make it cooler, and you'll see it. Pop in the store. Ask one of us. We'll open it up for pictures
Or
and
to be
stuff like
totally
that.
honest with you, if you look hard enough, you might just be able to see it parked out here one of these days.
Yes, and Dave's a nice
hard to
guy.
miss.
If he happens to not be in a hurry, he may even
It's
let you
hard
see
to
the
miss.
inside of it.
Heck yeah.
So, is
Wow.
there any future things you're sending this to? Future events? Nothing yet? that you know of?
No, I haven't planned that far in advance.
Okay.
There's some good shows coming up, but my schedule gets busy toward the end of the summer.
Sure.
Anything
So-
with the cruise?
We'll probably be at Woodward for some portion of it.
For some portion of it.
Yeah, actually, there's an event called the Broken Dream Cruise coming up the 12th. You can find it on Facebook. The van will be there. But yeah, if you go to the Detroit area car shows Facebook
Yeah.
page, that's a pretty good local source for shows in the area.
Oh, there you go.
And
Yeah.
usually you'll see guys will post up if they're going.
Oh, cool. I'm actually opening the Woodward Cruise again this year, so
Awesome.
maybe I'll call you and I'll show up in this thing.
There you go.
And we'll put a smoke.
We'll queue up
thing
the
in
fog
there.
machine.
Yeah,
and
and make it look like
in the smoke. It'll be perfect.
So I get to
That's
open
what we
and cut the ribbon, so maybe we'll ride down Woodward in this instead of the other.
Absolutely.
Cute.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Anyways, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody
Now-
on Facebook and Instagram say thanks, Dave, for
Yes,
bringing
and
back
if you have any questions about cars, shoot them to me, and I'll be more than happy to relay them to Dave. Or if you know him, ask him,
yeah.
because he knows like a million people. So we're going to continue on inside.
Absolutely.
You can join us, so you
I
can
will.
take off. It's up to you. So we're going to move you back in, guys.
Ooh.
Go around the other way.
Oh, because you want me to
And
pull it?
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you guys. And if there are questions, yes, please. If you guys have questions, ask us. Thank you for you're getting a lot of thank yous, Dave.
All right, we're backing up, everybody.
Okay, so don't mind us. We're backing up. The show is not ending, and we just don't want you guys to fall off. So we're going to back up all the way to the. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Led Zeppelin isn't that horrible of a thing to look at.
No.
Because it's right here.
Where you wanted that? Here's
Right
good.
here's fine. All right. If you want to, did you know? Or
Oh, yes,
I'm
yes.
doing
Okay,
this?
so you guys, today has been a whirlwind. We are so excited about the bubblegummer. I don't even have my paper ready. Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Now the show has started. Again, for the second time.
Yes.
Alrighty, so mostly, I really love the 70s, but I can't wait until next Tuesday because that's going to be the 80s, and personally, that's
Yeah.
my favorite time period. But if you're like me, I figured you guys would kind of like to notice and learn about the different songs that were really popular in the 70s, especially if you didn't grow up during that time. First one's going to be 1970s, the Beatles, Let It Be. Fun fact about them, unfortunately, after they dropped that full album, Let It Be, they did break up after that.
You know.
1977, we have Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Then next, we have 1979, which is going to be My Sharona by the Knack. And then last but not least, we do have Dancing Queen by the All But Less is going to be ABBA.
Oh, you're talking about Dancing Queen?
Yes.
Let me show you. So that you can actually come here, buy the outfits, and
become
be
a dancing queen.
a dancing queen. Hello, everybody. Okay, so we may have to move you back even. Take a look. Now, this is Larex, right? This is Larex, 70s material. Can you imagine? You're sitting there at Studio 54, and you are getting ready for the day before the Walk of Shame the next day.
I just have to, let me see this so I can
Go
bring
ahead.
it a little bit closer. Just like
Yeah.
look at how beautiful.
Isn't it?
Instagram's quality is amazing, but Facebook kind of killing it for me.
Isn't that cool?
Instagram,
So,
just look at this.
disco was a huge, huge part of the 70s.
Oh, and these are two separate pieces.
These are two separate pieces.
Ooh.
One's a pants with a, you know.
I like this with the no sleeves. This
Yes.
is giving. I really
Now,
like this
you'll
one.
have to come in the day after. Thought it was
Your shirt
cool,
matched the band.
colors. Oh, they thought it was cool that my shirt matched the band.
It does.
Yep. So, and, you know, disco was big, but it didn't last long.
No, not really, unfortunately.
It turned into techno, my favorite. But, you know, come on in the day after New Year's because I do a Walk of Shame mannequin. So, you know, it's actually hilarious.
And she's amazing to see, so you guys have to see.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Every year it's different. You know, sometimes she's carrying her undergarments in her hand.
Or maybe her
and
wig.
Her hair is completely, or her wig in her hand. You never know. So, you know, kind of like what they'd look like walking out of Studio 54.
No, literally. After a long day, for sure. And speaking of music being one of the hottest things in the 70s, does anybody remember Teen Star Gossip? It was an iconic magazine way before any 7-Eleven or Walgreens or CVS carried any of these magazines. Honestly, they put so much more thought into these than they did now. We'll just like flip through a couple of them here. Tiger Beats next, which is also personally one of my favorites. I did not get to read Teen Star Gossip. These papers are black and white. Honestly, iconic for me. I feel like there was a little bit more effort given there. Oh, let's look at the beautiful Cher on the back. She is always flawless.
You know, I know what's hilarious is she looks exactly like that today,
The
except for her
same.
teeth are different.
Her teeth are a little bit different, I would agree. I feel like she's a vampire. She's looked
But
the
you want to
same
know something?
forever.
I don't think Cher's had much plastic surgery.
No.
Because her mother died at 98 and was beautiful.
And I watched over the years of her, actually, ironically, today. She only lost her baby weight in her face. That was it. She looks identical. She just lost a bunch of weight in her face.
You know who she was married to, right?
Yeah. Please say his name first.
Sonny Bono.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to say his last name.
And
properly.
she was married to Sonny Bono, which she has, and we're talking about her because she is a 70s icon. And she was married to Sonny Bono in the 70s, the Sonny and Cher show. Then she married Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers. She had a daughter from Sonny, and a son or a daughter from Greg. Anyway, she has 2 kids from somebody. It was the 70s after all.
So, speaking of super popular things like brands such as Tiger Beat and Teen Star Gossip, HBO, Polaroid, Atari, Kodak, Nintendo, Woodstock, what is Chupa Chups?
What are you talking about?
Chupa Chups.
I have no idea what Chupa Chups is.
Me neither. I honestly think that is a chip brand, but I am not sure. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you know
what Chupa Chups is, tell us, because we are uneducated with Chupa Chups. We don't know. So you're doing movies and TVs or music?
Music.
So a couple other things fantastic showed up in...
Elijah Blue.
Oh, thank you, Elijah Blue. I couldn't remember. I love it when people tell me answer my questions on there.
No, that's what we need.
That's what we need.
That means you guys are paying
Yes.
attention.
And so, you know, some of the other main ones, you know, of course, was your Charlie's Angels.
Yes.
Because Little Miss Icon right here, Farrah Fawcett. She was on Every Boy's Wall and some girls, probably.
And if you look a little bit hard, we do have some original posters left.
We do. And we also have, this is Farrah Fawcett, Jill. And we also have iron-ons from back then that you can put on a jacket.
Transfers, for sure.
Transfers, yeah. So, and then, of course, well, you can't go without Kelly, because we'll be talking about Kelly next week, which is, what's her name in real life? Do you remember Kelly's name? Jacqueline Smith. We're going to be talking about Jacqueline Smith because Jacqueline Smith was one of the very first TV personalities to create her own clothing line and become a billionaire based solely on her clothing line that she sold in Kmart. Because she sold it to everyday people. You will hear more about Jacqueline Smith.
Honestly, love that. I can't wait to learn more about that.
She was the first one.
Speaking of women taking over certain things by storm, in 1971, New York Magazine prints the very first Miss Magazine insert, and that was co-founded by Gloria Steinem.
Gloria Steinem, iconic woman.
Yes, and that little magazine insert ran for about 17 years before they unfortunately canceled New York Mag.
Union, right? Gloria Steinem?
No, you're thinking of Karen Silkwood.
Yeah, Karen Silkwood? Yeah. One of them was a big activist for Union, and one of them was a activist was Karen Silkwood, and then both of them huge movies. You have to watch. You have to watch.
And then speaking of unfortunate
70's.
events, talking about fashion, in 1971 we also did lose our beloved Coco Chanel. Right after we did
Did she die of old age? Do you know?
They weren't really too specific, but I honestly think that that's what it's more leaning to because she was kind of up there. But a fun fact about this
I missed it. I missed what it said.
Oh, scroll back up and see.
No, it was on that one over there.
Oh, well, you can still scroll back up and see.
It was down. No.
So, John, start at the bottom, silly. Look
Yeah.
right here, look.
No, it showed up here.
Oh, then I
Somehow.
wouldn't even,
They're doing something weird. I love my treasures I got from you on Saturday. I can't wait to come back. Yay! I can't wait to have you back.
Unfortunately, right after we did lose Coco Chanel, Yves Saint Laurent actually made a super insensitive comment about them, saying that he is glad Coco Chanel is gone because all of her clothes look like they're from the war.
Well, Coco Chanel was very conservative.
Very, and it was very classy, very
And Yves Saint
professional.
Laurent wanted boobs hanging out.
Yes, Yves Saint Laurent was also very popular during the 70s, and they were kind of mad that Chanel was kind of taking over for like business and professional women.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Yves Saint Laurent, if it wasn't for Coco Chanel, the girls you have half naked with tans would not be there because it was Coco Chanel who brought the tans
to America. So, boom, mic drop. Another crazy thing that did happen in 1971 is Charles Manson got sentenced along with 4 other people.
Who read Helter Skelter?
Me. I've read the book like 25 times.
Okay, so did I. And it's ironic because we're doing the 70s show and we're talking about Helter Skelter. We're talking about Charles Manson, and somebody's about to go up on one of his disciples. I forgot her name. Do you remember her name?
Gosh, there were so many, Jason.
You know who I'm talking about? I can't remember her name. Anyway, she's one of the few living still. She
Seems like Mary or something.
Yeah, she was one of the people who was part of the La Bianca murders, and she's up for parole.
Which did happen after the Shade
Somebody will tell me what her
Tate
name
murders.
is. Somebody will tell me what her name was.
Leslie Van Houten.
We'll say it again.
Leslie Van Houten.
Leslie Van Houten, sunflower or flower something. I don't remember her actual what they called her, but Leslie Van, she's up for parole, and they think she's going to get it this time.
I mean, there's like give and take. I mean, if you like truly educated yourself on the Helter Skelter murders,
She did murder one of them
for sure, 100%. But what a lot of people don't realize is Charles Manson technically never touched anybody.
No,
he didn't murder
did not.
anybody. He was just a
all
strong enough.
psychological.
Exactly, he was just a strong enough power to tell people to do that, and they
But
settled
neither
happy.
did Jim Jones, and that happened in the 70s.
For sure, but he also took families and children.
Yeah, but he didn't. He told them to drink the Kool-Aid.
And they did!
And they did. He didn't force it down their throat. He did towards the end, the ones who wouldn't do it.
Okay, well, see, boom, there you go. Okay, back to brighter and better things. David, if you're still with us, this one's going to be for you. May 1st, 1979, Amtrak began service. And if you know David and myself, we take the train everywhere.
Steve just said to me he wants to take a train somewhere.
Oh my God, you should.
Well, we almost took it to California last time.
I wouldn't do it that far.
Oh, no. We were going to get a sleeping car and everything,
okay.
which would have been fine. It was 3 days, but it was actually cheaper to fly.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Trains are not cheap. Not if you want to sleep in a bed.
Oh, no, for sure. Agreed.
They're not.
So this is pretty cool. October 1st, 1971, Disney officially opened all of their doors, and that included retail, and that also included both of the amusement parks as well.
I know that they opened the Florida location then.
And then, this one's honestly really crazy. I was going to ask you about this earlier to see if you knew. June 30th, 1971, the original Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder premieres. Mm-hmm. Did you know they're coming out with a new one that comes out in
they come out with a new one every so often.
How do you feel about that?
The one in the 90s was with Johnny Depp, right? It was Johnny Depp who played him.
Yep.
It was Johnny Depp. The originals are always the best. They're always the best. I've read the book. The book is completely different. It depends. I think it's good that we keep these stories alive as the generations grow. As long as they don't take a lot of liberties with it and they keep it true to the storyline, I'm fine with them redoing it.
I feel that.
I think that there maybe should be a little bit of time between them because there's only been 20 years between the last one and this.
This one, for sure.
But you never know.
Hopefully they don't ruin it and it stays good.
I want to mention about transitional decades. Transitional decades, we've talked about transitional
decades.
And then what I've read about the 70s and then what we're currently in now is what they call the conservative backlash.
Okay.
Which I thought was interesting because it's the same thing that's happening now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where it's hilarious because some Americans, particularly working class and middle class whites, respond to the turbulence of the 1960s, the urban riots, the anti-war demonstrations, the counterculture by embracing a new type of conservative populism called silent majority, which started in the 70s.
Which the term silent majority is kind of offensive if you think about it.
What they refer to on that aspect is the people who don't feel like they have a voice. So they are giving them a voice, which a lot of people think that, a lot of people who feel they don't have voices, I don't want to say probably shouldn't have voices because that's not fair, but I think that we should be careful on what we do.
For sure.
And look at it with a sense of common sense and education rather than saying, okay.
And popularity.
Because what they're saying that is in the 70s that tired of what the conservative interpreted as spoiled hippies, whining protesters, tired of interfering government, and their views of that they coddle poor people and minorities at taxpayers' expense and stuff like that. It seems similar to what we're going through today, so it makes me wonder if the aughts, meaning the 2000s, was a transitional decade.
I can see how you would feel that way and see how you would see that.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was, because that's when the pronoun movement started to happen.
Sure.
That's when it's cyclical. That's what I'm getting at.
It's the inevitable.
Shocking.
It's going to happen regardless.
Well, yes, you're right. And I think it's funny because the world spins in a circle. So apparently humans feel they need to spin
in a circle as well. What's that last comment say?
Where at?
On Facebook.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I guess I could see
Led Zeppelin. Then this.
Oh, wow, we actually have a...
Oh, I don't know any of those. Read them. I wonder, is there any for Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Don said, thanks, Dave, for sharing the awesome van. Mm-hmm. Will said, thank you so much for sharing the awesome van. And David said, whoa, that's a cool van.
Awesome. And there might be more, but I wonder why I can't get them to show up on mine that much.
I don't know. Sometimes Facebook is choosy with who he wants to... who they want to view comments from.
Very good point. When the pendulum swings, it always swings equally back.
Exactly. Like, what is
That's a good way of putting that. A pendulum always swings both ways.
And I think that was what, on Facebook? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was Instagram.
Oh,
maybe it was.
It came up on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. So one of the other things about the 70s that's really cool that I want to talk about is it was looked at as the me generation. Okay, so apparently prior to the 1960s or 1970s, people looked at the greater good. What is, they made decisions based on what was good for the majority.
In the future.
And stuff like that. And then in the 70s, we became selfish.
Literally.
And we look at, and it became the me generation, which I thought was interesting. And I had to bring it up to see what it was, because I had never heard of that before. And it's funny, because Steve, that's the first thing out of his mouth was, oh, it's the me generation.
Which is funny, because in the 70s, the Beatles broke up, and Diana Ross played her last show with the Supremes, and she became solo.
Yes, she did. So I'm going to read this to you, because it makes better sense that way. In the 1970s saw many people reading self-help books, like How to Be Your Own Best Friend, Passages, Am I Okay, You're Okay, experimenting with marijuana. I'm sure that the 70s wasn't the only year that happened. And so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So it was all about yourself, getting to know yourself. And, getting to understand your sexual revolution, stuff like that. And so, therefore, we became more focused on ourselves rather than the greater good. Which is good and bad in its way.
It's good and it's bad.
I would say. And then, of course, it was the sexual revolution. And even though I don't have something to show you with Deep Throat, we've talked about Deep Throat before. Deep Throat...
Was it a movie?
It was a pornographic movie.
Oh, you guys talked about that earlier,
in
yes.
1968, the movies put in the ratings. Okay, or 68, 69. The movies introduced ratings. They released Deep Throat as an NC-17. Right after it was released and people saw it, they switched it to X and took it out of the theaters because it showed intercourse.
Sure.
And, but it was a state-of-the-art movie that had never been seen before, done like that, so therefore it was nominated for an Oscar.
What?
Then you had another movie that was happening, and I could bring down the poster. I should have. I'll post it, and so you guys can see it.
We'll actually make it a little bit better. If you guys want to know what we're talking about, you're just going to have to come in and see it.
Yep, or ask,
I'll
show you if you're not here, because some of them are in California.
You got to bring them in. You got to come in and see it.
Get on a plane and fly here.
Yes, you just got to come in and see it.
Right. The Exorcist was released in 1974 with an R rating, and they changed that to NC-17 at that point after the ratings fiasco and stuff, because it took years for them to get it under control. But they released two major films: Deep Throat and The Exorcist.
Okay.
One, the women went screaming, running out, "I cannot believe you're showing this!" Blah blah blah. While men, of course, probably just sat there and watched. And then everybody go running out. They had guys throwing up in the theater with The Exorcist.
Because that one scene, you guys know what scene I'm talking about, is brutal.
So they said, okay, maybe we need to rethink this.
So maybe we'll just, take a breather really quick.
But that's how you learn.
But I do have a question about that. Do you feel like the pullback on restricted movies sculpted the 70s?
What do you mean?
As far as, so when that movie was put out, people seen it, they took it out of theaters and then created it.
No, I think that they just became more...
Because what's the difference between going and watching that at, a peep show rather than going and seeing it at a theater?
Well, they never showed another porn in a theater after that one.
Okay.
Well, in a generalized theater.
Sure.
Because porn became porn.
Okay. By its own
at that point, yeah. And then the backlash started with the porn and this and that. So, but with The Exorcist, the horror, it was just too early for that much.
Sure. It was ahead of its time.
It was too ahead of its time, because if you see movies today, that's nothing.
Now, right, exactly. And fun fact about ratings on movies, did you know that America is the only place that uses letters? Everywhere else uses numbers?
What do you mean?
So, for example, I'm going to use Grand Theft Auto, the video game.
Yeah.
Here, it's rated, mature.
Yeah.
In Saudi Arabia or China, it's going to be rated as 18 plus. They don't have M for mature. They use 18.
Doesn't surprise me. We're the only ones that use. We don't use the matrix.
I found out the reason why we use letters instead of numbers is because letters is more vague. They could say mature. Okay, well, what age is mature? What age does it end?
There you go.
But in Saudi Arabia or China, they have numbers, and that's specifically you can't buy this unless you're 18 or 16 or whatever.
And then, of course, we have all the Elvis stuff. 1977. This was he died in 1977. So we have some of the most iconic music people dying off, like the two you spoke about,
Jimi Hendrix
and
and
Janis Joplin, and then of course Elvis, and then of course we lost Marilyn, and you know what I mean. So,
sorry, I kept getting stuck to my hair.
but this is 77 freezer mugs. You throw them in the freezer, they get cool. Isn't that cool?
I didn't even know they made those at that time.
Yeah. And then, of course, one of the things about fashion was wood jewelry back then. These were very popular. And we have all different kinds of wood jewelry. Look at this. I love that.
Is it a face?
Yeah. See? How fun
That's
is that?
cool.
So wood jewelry was really hot back then. Fringe, stuff like that. Until we started getting into disco. And then, of course, trucker hats got real popular in the 70s.
And I know you're probably looking at my outfit saying that's not 70s. I looked it up. Punk rock was a thing in the 70s.
It was. Actually,
That's
punk rock
worthy.
started in the 70s. The Ramones.
So I
The
brought up
Dead
my
Boys.
long maxi skirt and my nice skull shirt and like my nice metal chokers. This was a look in the 70s.
So, I heard my first Ramones song in 78.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it?
I cannot remember. Are you kidding? My dad listens to Ramones. And then, Blondie, the Dead Boys, you've got the CBGBs in New York where people were just flocking to because of the punk movement. Then you have Joy Division, which was big in the 70s,
And
late
colored
70s.
hair started making a trend too.
A trend, as well as the Mohawks. And then, of course, in Europe you had the anarchy movement.
Yes.
With
The A with the circle.
the slits and the
Safety pins on everything.
yeah, and Sex Pistols and all of them. So yeah, I mean, 70s had everything because you started the 70s out with peace, love, and harmony. Halfway through the 70s, you came across the rock and roll,
The sex, drugs,
American
rock and roll, for
Pie, stuff like that. A lot of REO Speedwagon. I could probably name every song of REO Speedwagon. I was in the 70s.
So I'm sure some of and I'm sure you know this, and I'm sure Dave knows this, and some of our viewers have probably known this, but for the viewers that don't, that are around my age, that are just starting to listen to 70s music, one of the greatest albums of all time, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, is actually one of the most depressing albums because every single song is written about each other, and they're all singing about it on the same song.
And it's funny because we're having a resurgence, or we had a resurgence of a lot of famous 70s acts.
Yes.
Hitting the road again.
Yes, literally.
Now, we did just see yesterday that Elton John, who was huge in the 70s, just played his final concert.
Which is so sad.
Or,
I'm
no,
proud of
just
him,
did
though.
his final tour. There's no such thing as a final concert to actors. To them.
To Elton John.
To any of them. I think Barbara Streisand had 12 and last
No
concerts.
way.
Yeah, everybody does.
Did you know that Neil Young wrote Lotta Love for Nicolette Larson?
Nick Larson?
Nicolette?
Nicolette? I don't even know who that is.
Really?
Mm-mm.
If you heard the song, I think you would
Oh,
know
I
it.
probably would. Did you know that the Fisher Building downtown has more marble constructed within it, making it the largest construction of marble in the world?
Which is amazing.
Did you know that, Dave?
I did.
Yeah. The largest construction made of marble in the world, which blows my mind because Italy, where a lot of marble comes from, does not have something bigger made out of marble.
So, Dave, since you're still here, I honestly didn't know if you were still with us or not. I have a question for you and Jason.
Yes.
Do you know what the song Barracuda by Heart is actually about?
I did. I cannot remember.
So, ironically, their record label threw out a little white lie about them before they dropped that whole album, and it was literally stating that the two sisters were sleeping with each other, and they thought that they were lesbian lovers.
There has always been a stigma with Heart and them being very manly men and lesbian stuff like that, but they're not.
And they're not, but they heard it, and they thought it was so funny that they were like, fine, if this is going to make us more money and get you guys to listen to the track just to hear what we have to say about it, fine. We're
So,
lesbian sisters.
I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite bands of the 70s broke up in the early 80s, probably in 80, 81. And one went rock and roll, a female band, and I want to see if they can tell me who it is. A female band, huge in the 70s, late 70s, broke up in the early 80s, One member became a rock and roll goddess through the 80s, although you don't see her anymore. One member became a superstar. One member became an actress, and you don't really see her anymore, and the other one just faded away.
Oh my goodness.
What band am I talking about?
Runaways.
Yes. What band am I talking about? And who are in this band? David says you're an expert on the 70s music, so tell me what band we're talking about.
Oh gosh.
You should look him always like
I don't know. Why would David, 70s is like my mid thing. Crap, if I know, I'd have to hear a song.
I love that. So the Runaways. So we're talking about the Runaways.
What is one of their songs, like...
Well, you're going to know who they are individually.
Okay.
Okay. I'm talking about the Runaways, and the rock goddess was Lita Ford. And you don't see her anymore. She was hard rock. The actress, Sherry Carey.
I'm getting their names right now.
And the superstar is Joan Jett.
No, really?
It is. Joan Jett was the lead singer of the Runaways.
So she was... okay, well now this is all making... okay, yeah. This is all making
Sherry
so much more
Carey
sense.
Was... the singer, I think, right? At the time. She sang as well, but she was in Foxes and Little Darlings in the 70s, which is a Tatum O'Neal movie. Watch it, it's good. And then you have Lita Ford. She went on to be a 80s hard rock goddess.
Which is
and
super
then
cool.
vanished.
Because you think about it as in, like, out of anybody who would be in the band, you take the least person who's active and make them the most popular.
There is a movie, too, with...
yes, I did see that.
Yes, there is a major movie with Kristen Stewart plays Joan Jett.
Okay.
And...
the album, like, the front movie cover was cute.
Yeah, it's a good movie. If you guys haven't seen it, watch it. It's really, really worth watching, you guys.
So I have 4 more facts that I
Oh,
really
go ahead.
wanna...
We still have 15 minutes.
Okay, sick. I haven't been looking at the time. In 1972, everyone knows I love Jane Fonda. She has the most controversial picture of the time period because she left the United States and went to Vietnam in the middle of the war and ended up getting in a picture.
Okay. There's good and bad about that with her. Okay.
Like, a lot of people hated her for it, but a lot of people were like, okay, this is cool.
A lot of people considered her to be a... what's the word I'm looking for? A communist. A what?
Traitor.
A traitor. And
Wow.
there are still people who consider her a traitor. And I want to say that she still takes pictures that shouldn't be realistic because she's 84 and looks 50.
Yes, but when you work out every day, life treats you good.
No. When you have Ted Turner money, life treats you good. Let's be honest here.
Did you guys ever watch MASH?
Yes.
David, you watched MASH?
Absolutely.
So did you know that premiered...
If you were alive in the 70s, you watched MASH.
I mean, my dad watched it, so I knew what it was.
We only had 3 TV stations.
Yeah, we did.
It premiered September 17th, 1972, and it ended in 1983, and it had one of the world's largest audiences ever in the history of TV.
I think still to this day, it still hits the largest.
Oh, for sure.
Watching. It ran for 13 years, which was unheard of for a war series.
Absolutely,
Twice
because...
as long as the war lasted.
Yeah, twice as long as the war lasted.
I'm not going to lie, anytime my
And
dad
spawned some of the biggest stars in Hollywood.
Agreed, for sure. A lot of people got their...
And I got to tell you, this was the 70s. It had a drag queen in it.
Bet y'all didn't know that.
It sure did. Klinger. Dressed every day in women's clothing in hopes to get discharged.
LOL, honestly, that is such a... That's super funny.
Did he not? He did.
That's so funny. And honestly, just think about that. All right, my last 2 that I have written down. 1973, Elvis Presley had the very first ever live broadcast from Hawaii, which is crazy because I should have stopped at my parents and grabbed it. I have that original record that was sold
Hawaii?
the broadcast live from
yeah.
Hawaii. And this actually was watched by more people than the moon landing.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. And then my last one is 1973, the infamous Dark Side of the Moon was released March 1st.
I almost wore that T-shirt.
Oh, okay. Well, that was...
I almost wore that
Either
T-shirt.
choice was a good one.
So, my did you know outside of that was, this is what it was. The Equal Rights Amendment in 1923, it was introduced in Congress every year up until 1972. This is women's rights. This is equality I'm talking about, okay? So I'm talking about equality, equal rights, pretty much for anything. However, they were pushing it for women's equal rights to get paid the same, to be able to work in the same jobs, to be able to do the same things that men do, and not have to be stuck at home. And so, and there were, in the 60s, women started to work. In the 50s, some of them. But in the 70s, they were still getting paid subpar to men. And they were not getting the CEO jobs. They were not getting the jobs for...
equal opportunities.
Yeah. And so, but that started in 1923. And it's just so shocking to me that from 23 to 72, every year it's entered, and every year they threw it out.
Which is honestly insane if you just logically think about it.
I know.
If you take that same scenario, and let's just say hypothetically, 5 years after they turned it down for 4 years, they said yes to it, how far we might be. Could have been.
As far as Spain?
Yeah, honestly.
So, you know, it was rectified. It was passed in 1972, but it was not rectified yet. It did not become rectified until it was reintroduced in 1982.
Dang. So
and there's still to this day where companies are paying women less for the same things that they're doing that men are doing.
And you want to know why when they tell you to not speak about your pay with other peers? That's why. That's literally why. Is because X might be getting paid more than Z.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, we've taken a bunch of leaps and then we've stepped back and then taken a bunch of leaps and stepped back.
But I feel like that's what happens every decade, for sure.
So one of the other things I want to talk about the 70s, and we got a few minutes, is owls. So owls were huge in the 70s. Those of you who come in here know that we have an entire section of owls, right? So owls did a lot in the 70s to really teach us things. Owls in the 70s did a lot to teach us things. There was Hoot the Owl. Hoot the Owl taught people to read.
Oh, I was like, that's not the Tootsie Pop Owl?
No, that's not. Hoot the Owl was reading. It was reading. So you'll find a lot of owls sitting on books with glasses, stuff like that.
Cute.
And that is to help inspire reading and to grow reading into children so that they can have a higher reading level.
Which is
and make
needed,
it fun.
For sure.
So you see a lot of owls depicting, like I said, the glasses, bookends, sitting on books, stuff like that, just all book related. So if somebody comes to you and says, oh, look, Hoot the Owl, that's what that means. The other owl is how many licks tell the
center of the
Tootsie Pop owl. And we saw that on there. So so owls were huge in the 70s. And to me, owl is my animal.
Your favorite?
Yes. And those of you who know me know that that I don't collect owls because I have a store that collects owls. I can look at them every day. I used to. So it started our owl collection when we first opened. Yeah. So that is why we always carry owls, because owls are a 70s mainstay.
And I have some really cool owl pieces that we have here in the store. This is like a potpourri. Smelly good. It has holes all on the top and a plug on the bottom, so you can hang this right in your bathroom or maybe above your trash can. But, excuse me, my favorite owl piece that we have here is going to be this. And a lot of people are probably like, oh, well, what is this? It is a super cute salt and pepper shaker. You can remove the owls and then they just hang right back on top of here. This is, personally, in my opinion, it's a very rare find. They didn't make a lot of these salt and pepper shakers because just in the realisticness, not a lot of people would want to use these. These come in a lot of different styles like grapes or strawberries, but I've never seen an owl one. Bring it in a little bit closer. Look how cute. And then you take off the top, and then again you can just refill it, and then they just go right back onto their home.
So owls come in many different things, as you can see here. So there are like the trivets, the colorful trivets from the 70s.
Yeah, banks.
As well as your candles, your banks, your stuff like that. And a lot of them are going to be done in the avocado color, in the orange colors, the rust colors, because that was 70s. The rust color, the avocado.
Maybe throw up green.
Right. And then another thing is, I want to show you these. Let me go set these down real quick. Keep them entertained for a second.
I'm trying to think. Wood jewelry is honestly one of my favorite, most sustainable pieces of jewelry that the world has ever came up with. You can make tons of jewelry from scrap wood. It's comfortable, and it matches literally every outfit. Oh, we're turning.
Just a little bit. Can you see him?
Yes, you can see him.
Okay. So, you see here. Here we have, and I'll take one out to show you. The medieval. Medieval was really big in the 70s. This is on teak board. And medieval is great. And you can find it in all sorts of 60s and 70s items. It adds great to the... these are really cool.
Was teak a popular wood at the time?
Teak was big in the 60s. And teak is one of the only woods known to man that repels water.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yep. So a lot of what you will find for cutting boards, for food prep, stuff like that will be teak because teak does not absorb the water, and you can wipe things right off it.
Noted.
It doesn't like take bacteria and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's why you'll find a lot of things built
So it's not as
with
porous.
teak. It's not porous at all.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest woods there are. Gotta go to dinner. Well, thank you for joining us.
You caught us right at a good time. We only have just a few
we're gonna
minutes.
be closing off in a second.
So they want to see... Oh, okay. Star Wars 1977 and Grease 1978. Thank you so much for bringing those up. Those are two iconic things that we did not touch base on.
So, of course, Star Wars were big, and that's probably Mars.
Ooh, this my jacket might fit me.
I know, isn't that cute? For disco time. So, I wasn't going to get too much into so they asked about Star Wars and what?
Grease.
Okay. So, Star Wars, I wasn't going to get a lot into toys in the Star Wars franchise, because we're going to be doing a show on that type of stuff. But, of course, Star Wars 1977. A lot of the toys did not start to come out until the late 70s, until about 78, 79. Most of them 80s, when Part 2 came out. But Star Wars is a big one, and look forward to a franchise show talking about different franchises that help to sculpt America, meaning like Star Wars. So that's why we didn't delve too deeply into that.
Sure.
Grease is another one that can deal with... Grease was filmed in the 70s. I did not bring it up a lot because it is based in the 50s.
For sure.
And even though it does have some of our most iconic artists in it, like John Travolta, who did star in Saturday Night Fever, which I was looking everywhere for our dance move books.
And we sold it.
We can touch base on the disco era for that. And then, of course, Olivia Newton-John made rest her show.
Last few years, yes.
And they did a movie in the 80s called Twist of Fate, which I really liked, too.
Is she in it?
Yeah, both of them are.
Oh, whoa. Oh, I didn't know that.
Both stars, Twist of Fate.
Also,
the only good thing about it was the song.
LOL. If you didn't know, before Olivia Newton-John did pass, her and John created a whole Christmas album, and it is honestly the most iconic album ever because you could just hear it in their voice that they're older, and it is a really cute album to listen to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us some of your guys' favorite 70s things. Shoot us some messages, stuff like that.
I really want to know what you guys wore to school every day. Like what
in
was
the 70s?
Like what was your basic outfit? Like you woke up and you were
I'm
like,
going to tell you what my basic outfit was. And I was in my single digits, and I had a shaved head. Okay? Because back then they just shaved your head. And that's awful because my parents were hairdressers and owned hair salons, and they still shave my head. So look at this. And so, polyester.
Okay. Polyester and nylon was like the fabric
Yeah,
of the
we
century.
died. Right? Polyester, we died. Guys, polyester, corduroy jeans, or work pants, or jeans. But polyester, sometimes you come across the tank tops, the really cool tank tops. Or, and then in Southern California, it was a lot of surfing shirts, a lot of beach shirts, stuff like that in the 70s. Sure. But for girls, I'm sure it was different. So tell us, what did you guys wear?
Yeah, I want to know. I'm curious.
Dave, was it pretty much polyester for you too?
A lot of prints.
A lot of prints, yeah. And they never matched each other.
Never.
So we had a lot of prints, because I remember my polyester shirt being printed, and then wearing print pants that were completely opposite. So apparently...
As long as they're the same color, that's all that matters, right?
Right. Apparently to them, because they weren't always the same color either. So back then, it was a lot of hand-me-downs, especially if you were a middle child, or you were the younger child, or there was other siblings in there, you got their hand-me-downs.
Exactly.
And because there was no, I want the new one, They said, no, you're getting this, or you're not going to
Go
wear
wait
clothes
5
anymore.
years and then you can have this shirt.
No, it was pretty much you're wearing what I buy you. Otherwise, you can go get a job and buy your own stuff.
Own stuff, for sure.
And they're telling this to an 8-year-old.
I mean, hey, I feel like...
Right?
Yep.
And I feel like as 8-year-old me, I would be like, okay, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. And we'll see how long that lasts.
Right.
So, but that was the 70s was a different world. We got spanked.
LOL.
You know, we
Not getting spanked.
we got spanked, and we were respectful to our parents.
Oh, absolutely. It came
And
out
if
when
we
shit like
weren't,
came out.
we ate. You know, I'm going to tell you. One time, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and my brother and I, because growing up with siblings, especially ones that are very close to your age, sitting at the dinner table, you tend to laugh your ass off.
Oh, for sure.
And then the more your parents get mad, the more
You're
you
laughing.
laugh,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
So my stepmother and my dad were so irritated with me and my brother Adrian that they made, if you want to act like animals, you're eating with them, and they put our food next to the
Dog bowl, for sure.
and they made us sit on the floor and eat. It was no, look what I'm going to do to you, and then move it back to the table.
like,
It
no,
was
this
get your
is
ass
it.
on the floor and eat it.
This is what you're doing, for sure.
Am I right? I mean, it was like that.
I love that, though. It gave you some
But I'm going to
character.
tell you, to this day, and it's not a matter of fright, and I get that from people. It's not a matter of fright. I'm not afraid I'm going to get slapped. I'm not anything like that. I'm afraid of being disrespectful.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? I do not want to be disrespectful to my mother. It took forever for me to even be able to swear in front of her. Now I can. I called my mom a B-wench, and she slapped the shit out of me. But you know what? Looking back on it, I deserve that.
Sure,
Because
sure.
what was I doing at 11, 12 years old calling my mother a B-word?
You're feeling all types of emotions.
Right, that's
Jason.
not fair. So, I think it's very important to understand that we did get spanked back there, but there is a line.
Sure.
And the reason why it is not okay today is because people didn't
Don't
understand
know.
that line.
But even now people don't know when to stop.
Right.
It's more of a control thing than it is a discipline thing.
Right. And do you remember these? The old 70s? Isn't that crazy? Anyways, it's time up. So what do you have to say?
I pretty much gave all of my Did You Knows. I really can't wait for...
No, the what you usually do,
Oh, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the normal spiel. If you guys liked what we talked about on this one, make sure you leave us some comments below. I'm still curious. I want to know what you guys wore to school on a regular basis. Like, you woke up and you were like, oh, it's Tuesday morning for school. I got to get ready. But I'm also curious as to what your favorite song was during that time, too.
And those of you from the 70s know who this is. This is Pam Dauber and Mark and Mindy, right? Little did you know, Pam Dauber, who's still with us today. Unfortunately, Robin Williams isn't. But Pam Dauber is the wife of Mark Harmon from NCIS.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Another amazing Did You Know fact.
Yeah. So, and when Robin Williams passed, Pam Dauber, who was his co-host with Mark and Mindy, and drove the Jeep I wanted my entire life, actually read his eulogy.
Aw, that would have been so sad.
He showed up in an egg on Happy Days,
LOL.
which was another 70s hit sitcom. But I could go on and on because it's my favorite. So, follow.
Comment and subscribe.
Yes, jump over to YouTube. This will be available on YouTube tomorrow.
And don't forget, we're on Threads now, guys.
Yes, we are on Threads. We're not hosting any of the lives on Threads as of yet because they need to get their poop together.
But we're
first.
still threading it up.
Yep. We want to thank Dave for taking the time to come up and show us the van.
Heck yeah.
And please, you guys, shoot us your comments about the van, stuff like that. We will let you know when it is going to be here. It may be the day of, but hey, if you're not doing anything, come on and take a look at it.
Be
So
there, be
have a
square.
great day.
And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Yes, thank you. Okay, where is it at now?
It's in the bottom left.
Thank
Or
you.
the